All right. Okay, so let me share my file. Okay, so you guys can see the slide.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So let's start. Okay, so again, good morning. So today's lesson, not really lesson, is more to sharing session. It's about lesson plan and assessment. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, in the previous session, we looked at classroom management. So it covers things like our attitudes towards our students, the classroom settings, and also we try to understand why students misbehave. Okay, so one of the parts that cause the students to misbehave is, if you remember, there are 2 points. One saying about the lesson is boring, or our delivery, okay, is boring. Okay, so that will make the students start to do other things, not paying attention, and we start to label them as misbehave in the class. Okay, so that's why it is important for us to always reflect back on our teaching style, our teaching materials, and things like that. Okay, so that to make sure the misbehavior or the disruption is not caused by our delivery. Okay, so today's sharing, basically we're looking into that. Okay, the first part, we're looking at how to ensure we can deliver our contents effectively and also achieve the learning outcomes. Okay, and second part, we're going to look at assessment. Okay, so what we measure, how we measure, and things like that. Okay, so today's objective. So we are looking at identify the important components in lesson planning and assessment, identify the documents required in lesson planning assessment, use suitable verbs in learning outcomes, create lesson based on the learning outcomes, apply modified Gartner events of instruction, create quality assessments and marking rubrics, entering data in OBE form and CAMU, identify academic misconduct. Okay, so those will be our objective. So before we move on, let's look at fun facts. Okay, this is attention span research by Microsoft in 2015. Okay, so according to the research in 2000, okay, year 2000, the average attention span for human is 12 seconds. Okay, but in 15 years time, okay, 2015, okay, it dropped to 8 seconds. Okay, so like people can't pay attention more than 8 seconds, and then you move to different things. Okay, so we can test this out ourselves. Okay, for example, like when you are doing a work, so you look at yourself, how long is your concentration on doing one task without looking at your phone? Or if you're using your laptop, you change the tab. You change to the WhatsApp tab, or you change to the Facebook tab. So you can see that yourself. Okay, how fast you shift your attention. Okay, so that's what attention span in here. And it'll be faster if we look at how we look at our social media, especially now with all the shots, everything, and we slide very fast. Okay, so that is attention span. And this research here is 2015. Okay, I can't find the most recent one. Like now it's 2025. So like 10 years from this research, I believe the attention span will be much shorter. Okay, and if you all have kids, then you can see the way they are behaving nowadays, okay, where they have the options to switch channels, they'll be switching very fast. Okay, so yeah, from there itself, we can see already our attention spans getting shorter, and that is what we have in our class. Okay, that's what we have in our class. So that's why we cannot compare with our older students. Okay, if you have taught long enough, you'll notice, oh, last time when I joined in the 90s, the students all behave very well. They can read books, they can pay attention to class for a few hours. Then after that, come in 2000, they still can do that, okay, but they're distracted a bit by their handphones. And then now in 2025, worse, now they're always looking at their handphones. So yeah, that is the trend that we can't avoid. Okay, so with this in mind, when we create our content, we have to make sure it is engaging enough for them to put more attention to our content. Okay, so this research, okay, they're actually comparing us with goldfish. So if you look at the goldfish there, it is 9 seconds. So goldfish throughout the attention span is well known as the shortest attention span animal. Okay, they have 9 seconds, but you can see human is getting worse than goldfish. Okay, so that is one thing that we have to remember, okay, when we are creating our content. Okay, so that's something for us to look at. And then another thing, okay, we have to remember is the forgetting curves. Okay, we know we cannot retain memory for very long. Okay, especially new information. So you can see here forgetting curve. 1 hour after delivery, 50% okay will be forgotten. Okay, then after 24 hours, 70% forgotten. And if we just leave it for 1 week without revising, okay, 90% okay, will be forgotten. Okay, so you can see the things is changing. Okay, 1 hour, 50%, 1 day, 70%, 1 week, 90%. So that's why you can see our students, the things that we taught in the first week, if we test them, that one topic that we taught them in first week during exam, which is week 13 or 14, they totally forgot. They say we never heard of these terms before. Okay, so that's the reason. Okay, because the way our mind work. Okay, so we cannot retain the information for very long. Okay, by 1 week, pretty much we've forgotten everything. Okay, so that's why over here, by knowing this information, we have to keep in mind that we have to always ask our students to revise, or we give them revision. Okay, we sometimes, after several topics, we do some pop quiz, or we test them on the previous things. Okay, because the repetition will retain the information longer. Okay, the repetition will make it longer, and even better if they themselves find a way like to make mind map, okay, or some special ways to remember the things, okay, the informations, so that they can internalize, and that one will make the information retain much longer. But typically for our students, normally we do revision. Okay, we do revision, we do repetition. Okay, so that is what you call it? Why we do that, because of this fact that we cannot retain new information for very long. Yeah, so these are the things that we have to remember every time we look at our students, and we are thinking, why they can't remember the things that we taught them last week. Very high chance they never revisit those things. They never do their own revisions during their free time. Okay. Okay. So now we enter, okay, the lesson plan. Okay, there's a very famous saying by Benjamin Franklin: if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Okay, that is very true. So just imagine, no, we go to watch a show. Okay, we go to watch a magic show, for example. Okay, we can see how the magician do things flawlessly from the start until the end, even whatever things happening in between that looks like accidents, but actually those are being trained. They have choreographed that to looks like accident, but actually it's not. Okay, so it means everything has been planned for just that 1 or 2 hour shows. Okay, so no difference from our teaching as well. For us to stand in front of students, deliver our lessons flawlessly, okay, we have to plan to make sure how to start and how to end. Okay, everything must be planned. So if we can teach effectively, okay, means we're able to deliver our information to the students. So in the previous session, we look at the setting, right? Previous session, we look at the setting. Oh no, the classroom in a certain setting, the climax, okay, the classroom climax, we already set, we want it to be in certain climax so that the students can pay attention. And also the way we talk to the students. Okay, so those are one part. The second part here is how we deliver the lesson effectively. So the factors, the key factors that will lead to effective learning is first, okay, when we plan, our lesson must be clear. Okay, lesson clarity. It means in terms of the order, okay, of the lesson, it has to be logical, step by step, from the introduction all the way to the difficult parts, okay, audible and distraction-free. Okay, distraction-free here can be means when we discussing about the topics, okay, we don't deviate too far. Now, sometimes we like to put in some stories inside there, and then we focus too much on that story. So we deviate too far from our main objective. And the students, they get distracted. They'll forget what you said earlier. They'll just remember your story. Okay, so first, lesson clarity. Second is the instructional variety. So we cannot just sit down there and talk for 1 hour or 2 hours. Okay, we have to use variety instructional materials, okay, teaching strategies, and types of feedback. Okay, so means we have handouts, we have activities to support our audio. Okay, we have visuals. Okay, we have PowerPoints, pictures, okay, and also some maybe hands-on activities. So the materials must be variety, okay, to support different learning styles. Okay, some they're comfortable with looking, some they're comfortable with listening. Okay, so we try our best to cater for all these groups here. Okay, the teaching strategies, okay, it's like if you see the student starts to fall asleep, then what you do, okay, after first class, if you see, oh no, this style, maybe I need to change, then the next time you try to change and see how the students react. Okay, so a lot of times these teaching strategies, we can learn a lot of theories, but at the end of the day, we have to test it out in the classroom. Okay, so the third one is task orientation. Okay, task orientation. So when we start our lesson, we have to always start with the objective, the learning outcome. Okay, why they have to do this. Okay, so when we tell them the objective is the object, if the objective is interesting, then the students, they will join those activities. Okay, and when we plan our lesson also, besides the objective, in the lesson instruction there, we have to put in the activities. Okay, so that they won't get bored by just listening. In other words, is the next one here, student engagement. Okay, so if you remember early on, we look at the attention span there, very short. Okay, so the short attention span normally happen if they sitting inactively. Okay, in other words, they are not participating in the activity. They just actively listen, like what you are doing now. Okay, just actively listen. So without doing anything, so they will lose attention. Okay, so when we plan, we must make sure we have students' activities in between so that we can test on their understanding. At the same time, we can prevent them from losing the interest. And lastly, so from the first four there, okay, from using different methods and then tell them the objectives and then make them doing those activities. At the end of the day, we want to see whether or not they have achieved what we planned to teach them. In other words, whether or not they achieve the learning outcome. So we start to give them quiz, pop quiz, some Kahoot games or things like that. Okay, so if they enjoy, they actually pay attention, then and they manage to understand or what you deliver, and they manage to score in their tests or quizzes, okay, then that shows that the lesson is effective. Okay, the lesson is effective, and hopefully with that, it motivates them to go to your next class with high motivation. Okay, so the success rate there is very important, okay, to maintain the students' self-esteem and motivation. Okay, so every class, make sure before we end, we do some short quiz or question Q&A just to make sure they understand, and you can see, okay, the happiness in them. Okay, so that shows that they understand. Yeah, so these are the 5 key factors for effective learning. Okay, the lessons must be clear, logical, step by step. Okay, we use various methods, okay, to teach the students. The objective must be clear. In our the sessions, we must make sure we have high students engagement. And lastly, we hope that they can achieve high success rates during the assessment. Okay. So the last part here will determine whether or not your teaching is effective. Okay, the last one there, the success rates. Okay, so that if success rate is high, that means your teaching is effective. If low, then we have to reflect back on what's wrong. So far, so good? Okay, yeah?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so that's the key factor. So we have all these things. Now we look at them one by one. Okay, so I know now it's already what, the 5th week into the semester. Yeah, but it's still not too late, okay, to look at this one. So course outline, okay, course outline. So let's say you are planning for next semester. You're planning for next semester. You already know what you are going to teach. So the first thing is we have to look at our course outline. Okay, so we have that document. Okay, so it's a very useful document. So it's for us to see the overall view of how the next semester looks like. Okay, how long is the semester? Would there be any holidays, any break? Okay, so that we can put in the activities assessment. Okay, we can plan those ahead. And then make sure we share the course outline with our students. Okay, so yeah, Sheila and Jailani, are you sharing your current course outline with your students?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, okay, good. So the course outline should have the important things like the dates for the assignments, what assignments that the dates for assignments so that they get ready. Okay, and then in class we can tell them in advance the coverage and things like that. Okay, so normally we build our course outline from our COPPA documents. Okay, from there we know how many topics and subtopics and so on. Okay, course outline looks like this. So just quickly go through this. So course outline, you have the week. Okay, how many weeks? This one you can look from academic calendar. And then the topics and the CLO mapping. This one is from COPPA document. And then if timetable already available, then the class schedule, we can put it in. And the activity, okay, during that slot. So what we do, is it a lecture, is it tutorial? So as you can see from this example here, I have the hours 2 or 1. So this is advisable to include. If you don't have, it's fine. Okay, but normally in our COPPA, we have to fulfill certain hours, correct? Like the SLT and things like that. So if we put in the hours over here, at least when during the planning, we know we actually whether or not we fulfill, whether or not we need extra slots and things like that. Okay, from the beginning itself, we already know. And then the remarks column. Okay, so the one of the things we put in here will be the holidays or special events that require the class to be replaced. So at the beginning of the semester, the first thing we can get is, of course, the public holiday. Okay, we can plot in first to see whether or not we have to do some replacement. Okay, so continuation from there. So under the activities, okay, we have to change accordingly. Not always lecture and tutorials only, depending on the nature of your course. Okay, so if you have practicals, make sure you have the practicals. Okay, you have field work, for example, or those terms that you use in your COPPA, then you have to use them accordingly. Then if you have exam, yeah, you put in there as well. Okay, when is the exam? And lastly, of course, you put in the replacement as well. Okay, so if you have planned and confirmed the replacement, you add in the replacement dates and time at the remarks column there. Okay, to make a record that you have replaced that. And make sure when you do the replacement or the additional class, you don't just you have to inform your HOS or ADH. I think there's an official form for you to fill in to get their approval. Okay, so make sure before you start your replacement class or what, 1 or 2 weeks in advance, you get the approval first. Okay, then you announce to students accordingly. Yeah. So that is the learning outcome. Okay, so learning outcome basically just to tell us the coverage, okay, how many topics we have to cover. Now, from there, we plan, okay, in each lesson, what we should do. So that will go to the next part, creating lesson learning outcome. So course learning outcome, CLO, that has been fixed in COPPA document. Right? At the end of the course, the students should be able to, what is the first CLO, what is the second CLO. So all those CLO achievement is based on the achievement of the lower LOs from individual topics. Okay, so that achievement of lesson learning outcome or the LOs, that will be by the delivery in the class. Okay, so we have to create LOs for each topics. So let's say this is your first time teaching the course. Okay, this is your first time teaching the course. So it'll be good if you can sit down and have a look at what will be the learning outcome from every topics and what you want to cover in every lesson. Okay, so the LOs, okay, the learning outcomes, measure the skills, knowledge, okay, or values students can demonstrate at the end of a lesson. So it will tell the students unambiguously the knowledge or skill and levels they're expected to achieve. Okay, so this LO can guide us, okay, as lecturers, okay, to plan how the depth and the breadth of the topic. Okay, because most of the times in our COPPA, they just give us the topic and sometimes the subtopic, but how far we have to cover, that will be based on whether you are teaching diploma or degree. That particular topic in your course, is it very important? Okay, how far you want to cover? So this is the time you plan. Okay, so when you get your LO right, okay, by the end of this lesson, the students should be able to what? Then that will serve as a guide how far how far you have to cover. And also from there, once you know your objective, what you want the students to do, then you can start to plan the classroom activities. Okay, what kind of activities you can give them so that they can achieve the outcome. And lastly, how to measure the learning outcomes. Okay, so early on, you already planned with this outcome, what the students expected to achieve. Then the last line here, assessment type and question. This will be the testing part. Have they achieved that outcome? Okay, so that's why this part here, creating lesson learning outcome should come first. Okay, once you know what you want to teach, then you can plan your assessment and activities accordingly. So learning outcome, the LOs, okay, there should be specific, measurable, achievable at a given time, and relevant, or in short, SMART. Okay, just like our KPI. Okay, so that will limit us, okay, make the LOs down to earth, something attainable, achievable within the one semester. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy, that is a very common tools, okay, cognitive tools we use to as our guides. Okay, so yeah, we use that to make sure that we cover the LOs at certain levels. Okay. Of course, like we have other two more taxonomy, affective and psychomotor. But most of the time we use Bloom's for cognitive, okay, because that's the easiest to do. Okay. Later, I will share the sites for these taxonomies so that you can just further read it during your free time. Okay, so just quickly go through. Bloom's taxo, basically we have the lower, the remember, then understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Okay, so based on your levels, then you see how much you have to cover in your syllabus. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy, one advantage about this is we can see the so-called the action verbs, okay, used when we create our LOs. Okay, so what we want the students to do. So if we want the students to explain something, so the explain part, or it means we're testing on their understanding. Okay, if we ask them to create, okay, or analyze the data given. Okay, analyze the data given and give your opinion on this. Then we know we ask the students to analyze and evaluate. Okay, so this Bloom's taxonomy will guide us and also guide the students on what to expect, okay, in that particular topics. Okay, so when we create our LOs, okay, so we have to be clear, okay, on what we want the students to achieve. So let's look at example. Understand the function of the heart. Is this a good LO? What do you think? Is this a good LO? Jelani, if you are there, you can contribute. Is this a good LO? Understand the function of a heart. Oh, missing in action. How about you, Sheila? What do you think?
Not sure, but maybe too general.
Okay, thank you. Yes, exactly. Okay, understand. What do you mean by understand? How Do I need to know the parts of the heart, the function of the heart, or what, right? Understand. So this one cannot be measured. Too vague, okay? Vague. We don't know what to measure. So that's why we have Bloom's taxonomy. That is the level of understanding. Okay, so instead of understand the function of heart, we can put it specifically, okay, what you want them to do. Okay, in example, you want explain the function of heart. So when the students, they read the learning outcome for that lesson or explain the function of heart, so they know, oh, this is expected from me. Okay, this is suitable. Example 2, identify and explain the components in the motherboard of a computer. So is this okay? Sheila, what do you think?
Identify and explain the components. Describe. I'm not sure, but
is identify one of the Bloom's verb?
I think for the first level, right? Identify.
Yes.
Then
Identify.
explain is the second one.
Yes.
So
So identify, explain. So is this okay?
We can ask, I mean, like, put it together. Maybe we can ask like separately, or not sure.
Actually, you get the answer already. So
really?
yeah, it's correct. I mean, in terms of verbs, identify and explain, both something that we can measure. But when we want to list out as learning outcome, it is advisable to split it. We just split it. Okay, we just split it so that later on, the students, they can self-evaluate. Okay, they look back at the LO. Okay, they are looking at the computers, so they're able to identify all the components, so they can tick the box, or I can identify. And then if they can pick up the components and and then start to tell you, oh, what is the function of these things, and then they tick the second box, means they can explain. Okay, so in terms of LO, we try to split it so that one LO contain only one verb. Okay, it's easier us to monitor, easier for the students to monitor themselves as well. Okay. Yeah. So good. You basically you are there already. Okay. So just have to recall back. Just look back at your LO. Okay, and see whether it's specific like this. And again, this LO is not the CLO in the COPPA. This LO normally is what we put in our slides to students. Like every topics, is good if you have your LOs listed on the front page, so that before the students continue with the contents, they look at the LO first. Oh, when I study this topic, what I should be able to achieve. Then only they move in to the topics. Yeah. So this is just example. Okay. So let's say I'm looking at, okay, so chemistry, what is the level? Okay, so I choose the foundation level. So the topic, the main topic is covalent bond. And then under the subtopic, you have covalent bond. Then under covalent bond, then you have the contents. Okay, definition, the name, the dot and cross, shapes, polarity, intermolecular forces. So all these are the contents for covalent bond. So when we want to deliver this, so we ask ourselves, for this covalent bond, okay, to achieve all this so-called definition of covalent bond all the way until intermolecular forces. So what they should be able to do. So then you can start to list out. Okay. So they should be able to define and then name, write the formula, draw, describe. So you can see all the verbs are here. Okay, so yeah, this one will help us to plan our activities, plan our lesson logically, okay, sequentially. And also, this learning outcome also will guide us on preparing the exam questions. Because from here we know already, oh, I just need the students to know, for example, the highest here, explain the type of intermolecular forces. So means from here I know the limits of the coverage. So I won't create questions that beyond this. Okay, like over here, there's no suggestion, there's no evaluation. So I don't tell them, no, give them the text to read and evaluate the type of interaction in this compound. So I cannot create those questions because inside here, there's no evaluation part. Okay, so in the learning outcome here, it will control us on what we can ask our students. Okay, so already plan the outcome. Now we can plan the content. So far, so good, Ila?
Yep, very good.
Okay, yeah, all right. So we already know our coverage of the topics. Now we want to create the content. So over here, we use what we call as a backward design. This one is by Grant, Wiggins, and Jay McTighe. Okay, so the gist of this backward design basically is to tell us how to plan a very good content. So this part here, you can see is a bit overlap with what I mentioned earlier. Okay, it's a bit overlap. Okay, so first, according to this backward design, before you start, you have to identify the desired result. In other words, the LO. Okay, so LO, we have CLO. Okay, we have CLO, course learning outcome. We have LLO, lesson learning outcome. So it's exactly as what being mentioned here. So you ask yourself these questions. The big ideas and important knowledge should the students retain? Okay, so the lesson learning outcome. Okay, learning lesson outcome. So by the end of this lesson, what the students should be able to do. So that is the most important things, okay, they need to know. For example, back to the examples I'm using, the covalent bond. So the most important things they need to know is to identify and differentiate the type of bonding in a substance based on the data provided. Okay, for example, this is the big idea. So after that, I ask, so what knowledge and skill the students should know? So to achieve that important LO, okay, to achieve that important information. So what the small skills the students should know? So how to write the names, how to write the formula, how to draw the dot. So all this will be what we have to cover. Okay, the information the students should know. And lastly, what information is good to know by the students, but is least important. So we should know this part as well. Okay, so examples like the least important here, most of the time will be the fun facts. For example, no, the fun facts are just to support the teaching of the contents, but there shouldn't be the main attraction. Okay, we shouldn't spend too much time on the fun facts. Okay, so we need to identify, if for today's lesson, this is the coverage. So what will be the least important things that is good for me to touch them, but just touch and go. And I don't expect the students to remember this and carry them until the examination. Okay, so these are some of the things that we need to know as well, because sometimes, when we too eager to share some facts with students, which have a very, is related to the topics, but we know it's just good to know information. We won't cover that in exam. Okay, but we spend like good 15 minutes just to discuss that thing in the class. So it is not, the class won't be fruitful. Okay, we won't achieve our objective on time. Okay, because we spend too much time on the less important things. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so according to this backward outcome, first thing before we start to create the content itself, we need to know the intention. What is the main intention? Okay, the main outcome, and then what we should plan to achieve the outcome, and lastly, what are the least important things that we can minimize or remove, okay, when we are delivering. Okay, so that's the first one, okay, the outcome. The second part, determine acceptable evidence. So before we even started to create the contents or the activities for the students, we have to determine the evidence. It means we have to plan the assessment already. What we plan to assess the students for this topic. Okay, so it can be later on, we'll touch back on these things. Okay, so when we plan, after we have LOs, then we think how to test them on the attainment of the LO. So the formative assessment, the summative assessment, okay? What kind of questions I can ask them? Okay, so when you create the questions, especially the formative, okay? Formative is the one that we use in the class to see whether they understand or not. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves, how do I know the students have achieved the LO? Okay, so if they're able to do something or they're able to explain something, so that is the proof. Okay, so we have to know, okay, how do I know the students have achieved? What are the suitable questions? Okay, what are the best assessment tools to collect? Okay, do I do quiz, pop quiz? Do I ask them to do just a simple survey? Okay, let's say you want to know whether they are happy with your teaching. So you do survey, we collect the data, we process the data. Okay. If we want to know whether or not they master certain skill, we give them the task, the case to do. If they're able to solve, we know they have achieved. So the tools here, okay, not necessarily must be always essay. Depends on the nature of that particular lesson. Hands-on, hands-on. If they have to draw mind map, draw mind map. Okay, group discussion, group discussion. What kind of best assessment? Okay, so you plan the LO and then you identify how to test the LO. Once you know what are the questions you are going to ask the students, then only you plan your teaching instructions and activity. Okay, so normally for us, we will plan this one first, right? We go to library, we borrow the reference book, we look at what to cover. Okay, this topic, this topic. Then from the topic, we extract to make questions. By right, it should be other way around. Okay, but we always do the opposite. Okay, we take the information and then we try to make questions out from those information. Okay, the actual more effective one is other way around. We plan the questions first, then from the questions, we plan our activities and the lesson. Okay. So why we do that? Because of this. Okay. So if we plan our assessment first, then we can be very sure we're going to teach them what they need to know. Okay. What they need to know, not what you want to teach. Okay, because if you look at the textbook, especially if we borrow few textbook, the coverage depends on the author. Okay, is it suitable for your course? Maybe just one small chunk. Okay, so that's why the LO is important. We have to see that whatever books we have borrowed, they are not catered for your course. Okay, we design our course using these textbooks as materials. So we have to extract carefully what's suitable for the level of that course. Okay, so with the LOs, with the assessment, we know the limit. Then we teach accordingly. So we teach them what they need to know according to the LO and PLO, not what we want to teach based on our interest or the textbook and things like that. Okay, so yeah, this part I already covered. So we don't just use one textbook as the main resource. Okay, if we can find few, we plug and build lah. Okay, just to suit the course. Okay, not just put one textbook or cover from topic 1 to topic 10, everything just there. No, okay, we have to mix and match. Okay, so plan teaching instruction activities. Again, over here, a lot of questioning. We keep questioning ourselves. Okay, what is the purpose? Okay, knowledge and skill required to perform in the assessment. Okay, so if we have thought about that earlier, then we know. Okay, so what the knowledge and skills, then that is what we plan in our activities and our content. Okay, what will need to be taught and how it should be delivered. Yeah, so this one here is like, do I need to dance and sing? Yes, if you need dance and sing, then you have to dance and sing. Okay, so you have to look at what is the appropriate tools to use to teach. Okay, and activities. Okay, what activities will equip the students with the knowledge and skills? Okay, the questions. Okay, basically it's more to the questions. Okay, to test. Okay, and or for them to join so that they can have students-teacher interactions, for them to ask questions, to discuss about the topics or cases and things like that. Okay, what to make them interact in the class. Okay, what to force them to interact in the class. Okay, so so far so good. Sheila, any question?
No, so far so.
Yeah. So yeah, Sheila. So based on your this semester experience, do you follow this or you plan your
I think
content
I
first?
did like content first. I
Yeah.
should follow this one actually.
It's very common. It's very common because like everything in rush, right? We always like, oh, prepare our notes, make sure our notes is ready, then we pass it to students, then we think about the questions. Okay,
Yeah.
that is quite normal. Okay, that is quite normal. But once you experience it once, you already deliver your lesson once, your contents, everything already there. So for second semester or next semester, you can try this. Okay? Because you know you don't have to redo your notes already. So you try to do this. You look back at the outcome, the learning outcome, then try to ask yourself what I want to test them. And then hopefully it will make the teaching experience much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so first part, okay, we plan. Okay, already plan everything on paper. Very nice. Now it's time to deliver. So how to deliver these things effectively? We use the GATNIS events of instruction. I'm not sure whether you have heard of this before or not. GATNIS events of instruction. Have you heard of these terms before?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm
So
not familiar.
GATNIS. Okay, but let's compare this with what you have done so far. I believe you hit few points. Okay, sure you hit few points. It's just GATNIS, he put it in a sequential manner so that it's easy for people to follow. And when you do that particular steps, you're aware, oh no, I'm now doing this. I'm now doing this. Basically, he's more like he tried to categorize the activities into steps. Okay. the original GEPNIS, basically there are 9 events. Okay, there are 9 events. If you Google GEPNIS event of instruction, you will get 9. Okay, 9. But the reference I'm referring here, this is also by GEPNIS and another person. They modified a bit and become 7 events. Okay, but these 7 events basically still cover all the 9. Okay, so 7 instructions. So GEPNIS and bricks. Okay, so they remove it. Remove 2 other steps. So the first one here is gain attention. Okay, so this is the first step. You gain attention, then you inform objective in class, recall the knowledge, present the contents, elicit performance, provide feedback, and assess performance. So what missing from here, if we refer to the original ones, is when you present your content, over here there's another steps here, which is called providing learning guidance. Okay, providing learning guidance. So basically over here, that part is already merged with the presents content. Okay, and then another missing step from here, after assess performance, there's actually another step is called enhanced retention. Okay, enhanced retention and transfer. Okay, that is removed from this one here. Okay, so this one is basically just like in that one session. Okay, in that one session, this is the cycle. But we want to extend to like they're going to use that information until during exam. Then you need the enhanced retention and transfer, which is, as I said earlier, the revision parts. Okay, there's the revision part. Okay, so let's look at these steps in details. So when we walk in the class, okay, we don't straight away start the class, say, okay, good morning, students. So today we're going to do straight away jump in and do. So normally that won't gain their attention. So before we start, it's good if we can spend around 5 minutes like that, okay, just to gain their attention, okay, because we know sometimes, especially if we have 8 a.m. class, if we go in on time, we start on time, students won't be there. Okay, students will slowly trickling in. So we straight away jump in, then the students will miss out the important parts. Okay, so before we start, okay, we start slow. Okay, so we gain attention. We can tell them why they should need to know about this topic. Okay, so and also try to get their attention of what we want to teach today. So we can always start by asking common questions related to the topics. So for example, let's say if you're teaching economics or teaching business, okay, and today's lesson is about branding, then you can ask them, oh, no, you just buy the Zeus coffee, so how much is it? Or you can ask, oh, do you have any experience buying coffee from airports or the stalls down there? Then that itself can become a starter, okay, to gain their attention to, oh, no, why like this? Why like that? Then you can slowly move into the next part already. Or you can ask thought-provoking questions, especially like if those teaching social sciences, sociology, psychology, history, they can ask those provoking questions which have no answer. Then the students will start debating, and then from there they can start to go into the topics. Okay, like for example, even in science also, we can ask the thought-provoking questions. Like now, EV is very happening. Everyone talking about EV car. So you can ask the question, if you're teaching science, you can ask, is the EV solution to air pollution? Then they'll start to think. Some will say yes, some will say no. Then you try to, from here, you lead them to the content. It's okay, don't think, yeah? Don't think it's EV solution for air pollution. You can think about this later. Okay, don't worry. Okay. Or if you have no questions to ask, then you can easily just create questions from interesting facts, pictures, or diagrams. Okay, then from there itself, you start to draw their attention, asking them questions, gain their feedback. Okay, for example, like for science, I'll have a lot of questions for science, okay, because there's a background there. Okay, so like now you start to show them the red cabbage juice, okay, in lemon, in sodium carbonate, they'll give you different color. Then from there itself, you can start. If your topics is about acid and base, if your topic is about acid and base, you can start with this. Oh, I say this is the red cabbage solution. Let's see how the color change, in lemon juice, or how the color change in baking soda. Then from there itself, you start to move on to the next step. Yeah, so the first step here is to gain attention for them to build the excitement or the interest on what you want to deliver. Okay. Just imagine how scammers scam people. They don't straight away say, I sell you this. They will show you luxury items, holidays, money. Once you get hooked, then you start to click the scam button. You get scammed. Something similar. Okay, so if your first step here can be as good as the advertisement used by scammer, then for sure you can gain their attention. Okay, then you can move on to the next one. So the next one here, before you jump straight into the content, you have to tell them. Now after you gain their attention, you want to retain their interest. You tell them why you should stay for the next 2 hours. Okay, so the learning outcomes. Okay, you try to tell them the learning outcomes. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, you should be able to. That is the go-through phrase. Okay, by the end of this lesson, what you should be able to. Okay, so remember 4 examples, explain this, sketch this. So you give them the general idea, what they will expect to see. Okay, yeah, so once they know the objective, now you can start. Okay, this one here is the pre. Okay, before you jump into the actual, you want to stimulate recall of prior knowledge. So let's say whatever they're going to learn today has foundation they have learned earlier, maybe in high school or the previous class. Then before you jump straight to today's content, you can do a short exercise just to let them recall the memory so that later on they can follow easier. Okay, so over here, okay, so this one will make the students easy to make connection between the past lesson and today's lesson. So normally we just do a quick one, just asking questions, okay, do review or summarizing. Okay, so once that part done, all this very short only, okay, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, okay, or 10 to 15 minutes. You should be able to adjust it, okay, from class to class or from lesson to lesson. Okay, this is just to let them recall back, okay, or recall back, and then after that tell them, oh no, now you know this. Today you're going to learn that. Okay, so lead them, okay, tell them what they should be able to expect. Okay, the fourth part here, this is the main chunk. Okay, we present the content. So how much I need to cover? So that is the present the content. So earlier on, we already planned, okay, according to the LO. So this is where you start to use them. Okay, so the lesson should be structured and organized. Start with the fundamental and then slowly go deeper and deeper. Okay, so lessons, okay, we have these 3 things here: authentic, variety, and highlighting. So authentic means over here, we use as many real life examples as possible in the example in the lesson. Okay, variety here is referring to the teaching style, the activities. okay, the activities, the teaching style, the tools we use to make the lesson engaging. Okay, audio, video, hands-on work, discussions. So all this will be planned in during this presenting of the content. Okay, and this one should be the main chunk of the time. Okay, for them to engage in the activities. Okay, and highlighting. Okay, so when we deliver our lessons, okay, those important parts, okay, we should highlight to them, repeat to them, or circle to them, okay, so that they can remember clearly. Okay, so once we present this the contents to them, then we elicit performance. So normally presenting the content elicit performance, we tend of doing them like together. So we teach them things before we move on. We want to know how much they know. So we engage them by asking them questions, okay, to know whether or not they understand. Okay, so it can be as simple as asking the students back what you have covered earlier. Okay, so so and so, do you know the definition of this? Or what I've can you summarize what I've mentioned earlier? So the students will then participate in those Q&A. Okay, so elicit performance, basically just ask them questions so that you can know from their reply whether or not they understand what you have covered earlier. So this is different from Kahoot quiz. Okay, this is not Kahoot quiz. This is just a very spontaneous way to gaining their feedback. Okay. So like asking them, oh, can you repeat back? Okay, or can you give me the definition of this? Okay, what do you understand about this? Okay, so that is the elicit performance. Okay, we want the students to turn to give feedback on what we have covered earlier. Okay, so the four and five, basically they are kind of going back and forth. Okay? You cover your contents, and then the elicit performance here basically just ask them, oh, do you understand this? Do you understand that? Okay, it can be part of the activities in your lesson plan. Okay, what questions you want to ask them. Okay, so once they give you those feedback, like they answer your questions, if you ask them like, oh, no, can you give your comments on this matter? Then they give their opinion. Then once they give their opinions, we have to provide feedback to them, okay, based on their response. Okay, based on their response, then we provide feedback. Oh, yeah, this is correct, or no, it's correct. However, you have to add in this and that. Okay, so feedback. Okay, once they respond, then we give feedback. Okay, the feedback should identify the areas of improvement if there's any. Okay, or if they have incorrect understanding, and that's where we correct those facts. Okay, especially like normally in our theory papers, for example, a lot of those theories, sometimes students, they misunderstand certain theories. So this is the time where we correct them. Okay, so we ask them, oh, can you tell me this? Then they read out the theories. Then we realize, oh, no, this part is wrong. Then we correct them on the spots. Okay, so the kind of examples of feedback. So we give correct answers to the entire class after we ask them the questions, or give key answers after group discussions. Or we point to the correct answers in a textbook. Okay, so this is provide feedback. So we don't just ask questions and then just move on. Okay, we ask questions, listen to their answer, and then respond. Okay, to correct them on the spot. Okay. So once we know, oh, the students are good to go, then we can continue with the lesson. Okay, you can continue the lesson. After that, once we know, okay, the students seems like they have know everything, they are good to go, then before we end the class, we give them the actual test. Okay, this is assess performance. Okay, so the earlier on, we try to know how much they understand to correct whatever mistakes or misunderstanding or misconceptions they have during the learning. So once all those things being corrected, now we test them before we end the session to know exactly whether or not they have achieved the LOs that we planned earlier. Okay? So this is where you do let's see, these few things here. Okay, like you want to do the Kahoot quiz or the quiz or the pop quiz. This is the time. Okay, after you have ensure they understand the things, then only we do this. Okay, the Kahoot quiz, the test. So this should be the last part to test exactly how much they have attained the knowledge to fulfill the LO. Okay, so even the homework exercises also consider as the part where we assess their performance. Okay, it's just that very unfortunate nowadays, especially if you are asking about some very generic questions, they can easily get the answer from AI. Okay, that is our new challenge. Okay, like those days, no choice. They have to research, they have to search from books, they have to write. There's still some work to do. Okay, but now if you ask them to submit their work, they can type and send the answer, then most likely they'll just copy and paste from the AI. Okay, so that is another challenge. You have to try and error to see, try the very best to make the exercise so that the students are forced to do a bit of work. Okay? Even if they copy from some resources, at least they still copy. Okay? They still have to do some kind of thinking. Okay? So that is okay, not just copy paste from online. Okay? Yeah, that one they won't read, they won't understand for sure. Okay. So yeah, so basically these are the 7 steps, Getney's step. Okay, so from gaining attention all the way to assess performance. Okay, then we ask like how long, okay, we should do this. Depends on your class. Okay, of course you have to try and error. Okay, you have to try and error to see whether or not you can do this. Okay, so the allocated time here basically just a suggestion. Okay, so this is for a 50 minutes class. So you can see all the time spent here all like within the 5 minutes to 20 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, the presentation of the content and elicit performance, this part here will be the largest chunk. Okay, because that is where the actual teaching and learning take place. Okay, you present the content to them, you teach them the techniques, and then ask them for the feedback. Okay, so that will be the largest chunk. And then it also says here, when we follow these steps, we don't have to be like robots, no? Must have 1 to 7, 1 to 7, not necessary. Depends on the situation. Okay? If you think for today, 1 hour class, I cannot cover everything, so some have to continue tomorrow. So never mind, for today, I don't have to test them on the performance. I keep the quiz until tomorrow. So today, I just make sure I test on their knowledge, the elicit performance, give them feedback, ask them to revise. Tomorrow, at the end of the session, I test their performance. Okay, so or it is something very new. They never learned this before in their high school or even the previous chapter or the previous course. So I don't have to test on their prior knowledge because there's nothing to test. So I can skip that part. Maybe at the gaining attention there, I can do some exercise, and then I can, in my present the contents, I'll spend longer times, okay, to explain something new. So I can skip the recalling prior knowledge. Okay, so all these things basically not fixed in stone. We can adjust them according to the nature of our lesson for that day. Okay, it's good to test on this one, right? So and this one here you can use immediately. After this class, maybe over the weekend, you see which of your lesson is interesting enough for you to apply this. Okay, because most of the time when we start, if we straight away start with some very dry topic, it will take a very long time to come up with an idea. But if you have a very interesting topics to cover, you have a lot of ideas, a lot of activities, and then you can try. Okay, so this one I will do now, this one I will plan it later. You try to arrange it and then execute in your class. Let's see how it goes. Okay, if it is very good, then next time you can use back that for your next class or the different class, something like that. Okay. All right. So before I move on, yeah, I think Jailani, are you still there? Never mind. Yeah, Sheila. So far, out of these 7 steps, do you think you follow this sequence in your delivery?
Yep, I believe I followed like from the first step until the end. It's just that I didn't know the term is
The
the
terms,
kata.
yes. Get,
Okay,
get
but
me. Yeah, get me.
get sorry, get me.
Get
Okay,
me. Yeah.
get me. I got this one questions,
Mhm,
doctor. For gain the attentions, right?
mhm.
Normally, okay, is it better if let's say I want to start a class and then should I like refresh back what actually that the students learn from the previous class, if let's say it's not related with the new chapter, with the things that with the lectures that I'm going to give during that session, because I'm wondering if let's say I start with refresh the previous one, then their focus going to be like thinking about what they actually did before. And if let's say I'm using this, let's say I start the class totally focusing on the new chapter, then they're going to have more attentions towards the news topic. But I just want to make sure they actually remember about what we already learned before. So what do you think about this, Doctor?
Okay. Yes, it's a good question, because I think most of us always try to say, okay, what I've taught last week, something like that, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
so that actually is out of these 7 steps. That's out of these 7 steps. Basically, that is more like you use extra time to do the recall, but not on what you're going to cover today. Yeah. So if you remember earlier on, I mentioned the 9 steps, right? The 9 steps. The last step is the retention part. So if you are asking them to recall back what they have learned in the previous topics, so basically that one is considered as you are using the 9 steps. Yeah. So you try to make them recall, so that the knowledge can be retained longer. Yeah, so not wrong. That is actually the so-called the 9th step. It's just that you do it the following day. Okay, you ask them to recall back what they have learned, but that should be for the previous lesson. Yeah. So this one here, from gaining attention until the access of performance, is for what you want to deliver today. So it's like a
Okay.
package of what you want to deliver today. So let's say you start your class by doing the to recall back what they have learned in their previous topic, which has nothing to do with today's topic. So yeah, you can do that 5-10 minutes, done. After that, you close it properly. Okay, you close it properly. Then you start with this one. Okay, so okay, so this good job, well done. You have managed to recall back the explanation, everything for this topic. So now let's look at today's activity. Yeah. So it's important for you to have that transition so that they know, oh, now I'm switching the activity. Yeah, so you have to end it properly. Okay, end already. So okay, so for today, we're going to do this. So let's say if you have some handouts or what, we can start to give them a handout. Okay, so for today, this is what we're going to do. So after that, you start slowly, start from the gaining attention. Do you know da 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 da? Do you know this is this? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so you get the idea, yeah? Okay. So yes, as I mentioned earlier before I start, actually we have been doing this in our daily interaction with students. It's just that sometimes we might skip a step or two, okay? But actually we have been doing this. It's just that now we aware about these steps and we aware about what is the strategy for each steps. Then we are more aware in the class. Okay, so now I'm doing this. So next I'm doing this. Okay, so which part I've missed out, something like that. Okay, but yeah, normally we will we'll do this in attention, what you call that? Without we knowing it. Okay, we just do it very naturally. Okay, this is just an example. Like, let's say if you very new, okay, you have a very new topics, you never taught it before. Okay, so in your planning, okay, you can just write it down. This is just an example of planning. Just write it down. Okay, so gain attention. For example, here, dot and cross. Okay, dot and cross. So gaining attention. So maybe I can use some ball and sticks models, like for example, like this. I think you can see it. Yeah, you can see. Yeah. So you can just show them first. Oh no, this is the things. So let them see and touch, and then ask them few questions. Okay, then after that, I will continue with the learning outcome. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to do what? Identify the compounds, draw the correct dot and cross. Okay, then recall prior knowledge. So they have learned about metals, non-metals. So we can just do some quick Q&A on asking them questions. Okay, states the number of valence electrons, recall the formation of the covalent bond. Then after that, presents the contents. Okay, step by step how to draw the things. Okay, then in between we ask them the questions. Okay, like how you do this, how you do that. Okay, ask them the questions. Then comments on their answer. Okay, so if there's still difficulties in the you can see the students still struggling, then we can go back to the previous step. Okay, so the illicit performance providing feedback here. After here, sometimes we have to go back. Let's say you can see the students still unable to answer correctly. Then we see where they're stuck. Then we have to reteach again. And then at the end, if we have covered all, then we can assess the performance. Okay, so ask them questions on the must know concept. Okay, so they're able to answer, that's good. Then end it with homework. Okay, so okay, give them a few homeworks to do for the then they have to present next class. Okay, so this is just examples when you are doing the planning. Okay, yeah. So hold on. Seems like something Something strange happened to my slides. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, done with this one. Now we're back to this. Okay, this one is a day one plan. So I know now it's not day one anymore. So next time, maybe you can start with this. And again, this is nothing new. Most of you most likely have used this in day one because we know like day one, we don't really teach. Okay, depends. If 1 hour, the 2 hour class will be different. Okay, so day one plan. So they never seen you before, you never seen them before. So it's good to start with the ice breaking session. Okay, get to know each other. Okay, to identify our students, maybe you can see, oh, they are from various backgrounds, from various states or different countries. Then can do some activities so that they are comfortable with each other. And if we have international students, they get comfortable with the situation in the class, they get the chance to talk, they get comfortable with the lecturer, with you. So that's the things that we do during ice breaking. Okay, because if we straight away start with the heavy stuff, for them it's like, oh, this is just my first week here. They feel like, oh, everything very cold, then they might not open, okay, to the classmates or open to you. So it's good, okay, first day, get to know each other, okay, share some tips. If let's say you have international students, maybe you can get to know them more about their, for examples like um, their background, how they find about Malaysia, things like that. Okay, so ice breaking. Then once done with the ice breaking, then only introduce your course. This is where your course outline become very important. Okay, this is where your course outline become very important. You show them, okay, so this is your course. What is the name? How many weeks? The topics coverage. What to expect for the assessment part, how many practicals you have, how many assignments you have. This is where you introduce to them. Then this part here is related to last week's one. So the first day itself, we have to set our rules there. Okay, for examples, like let's say you want them to read one news article per day, for example, okay, for example, let's say your habit is every day before the start of the class, you use the news article as your teaching material. So you expect them to read one article. So these kind of things you have to tell them on the first day itself. Okay, so this is what I expect you to do. Okay, tell them. Or you have the specific rules, like you want to set it as example. When everyone go to the class, they must turn off their handphones, things like that. Okay, so all these things you have to let them know your expectation. Okay, the first day itself. Okay, then let's say these three things done already. And again, okay, all these things are planning. You already have your course outline. You see, oh, the first day is a 1 hour class. Okay, 1 hour class. So you can't just do these three things. You after you plan, it's like, oh no, I will have another 20 minutes left, so I can't just dismiss them. Or even worse, the first day itself already 2 hour class. I cannot just after 30 minutes dismiss them straight away. So I still have to do some teaching there. Okay, so this is where we start with beginner levels activity. Okay, so we can, let's say your subject is something that they've heard or learned before. So you can start by giving them the beginner levels activity. Okay, so questions, Q&A, quizzes, okay, treasure hunts, anything that will make them recall what they have learned previously that is related to this course. Okay, so the benefits is basically first, of course, to recall the prior knowledge. That's very important. Okay, so we know how much they know. Okay, coverage of the course. So when we give them the beginners level activity, from there we can actually gauge in their high school or the previous place, what is the coverage, what they know, what they already know. Okay, so this is very important during the beginners level here. And then for the beginner level activities, if you are doing questions, answer, or competitions, okay, so those questions cannot be too difficult until they get mostly wrong. Okay, it should be something that they can score easily. Okay, so that it will build the confidence. Okay, of course, if those students they really forgotten all those things, that one is different story. But generally, averagely, they should be able to retain some prior knowledge. Okay, so when they join those activities, they get mostly correct. That will build their confidence. So when this you can build their confidence, then they will look forward for the next class. They say, oh, okay, so this is what I've learned earlier. Not bad. I still know a lot. And then looking at the contents from the course outline and say, oh no, these are some interesting topics. I'm looking forward to see what you're going to present to me. So they will looking forward for the next class. So if the first day itself already boring, or you give them activities that they cannot score even 1 mark, then you can foresee, okay, the next 12 weeks will be very, very difficult. Okay, then of course, yeah, this one here, the closure. After the first day, you ask them, okay, then reminder for the next class, what you should do next. Okay, because normally after the first day, they're still very, very new. You might want to remind them, oh, you go, especially now we're using Kamu, or you have alternative for that. You have to let them know, okay, from here, you read this, you download this, you read this, then we see you next class. Okay, so always let them know what you expect them to do next class. Okay, don't just end, okay, see you tomorrow. Then just finish. Then tomorrow you go to the class, have you read this? Not yet, because you never tell them. Okay, so make sure, okay, before you end the class, you tell them in advance, tomorrow or next class, what I expect to see from you. Then only you end your class. Okay, so that there's a proper closure there. Okay, so yeah, that is the planning part. Okay, lesson planning part, from planning your LO all the way until delivering the lesson. Okay, any question so far? Anything you want to ask? Okay, so if no, let's take a 10 minutes break. After this, we'll continue with assessment. Okay, so now it's 10:37, so see you back at 10:47 like that. Okay, so see you later.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's resume the session. Are you all ready? Hi, Nine. Okay, so this is a recorded version, Naim. So don't worry. Okay, later on, I think you should be able to watch. So basically, the part you miss is the lesson planning. Okay, lesson planning. Have you heard of the terms GAGNE? GAGNE, GAGNE, GAGNE's steps. GAGNE 9 steps. No, yeah. Okay. Never mind. Later you just listen back again, the playback. Okay, so testing. I think my microphone is off earlier. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I just share in the chat box. That is the link for you to check out on the taxonomies if you are interested. So over there you can see the Bloom's taxonomy, the explanation. Okay, and in that site they have more links as well. Okay, if you're interested, you can just explore. Okay, explore the things on your own. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, let's continue with the second half of the session. Okay, second half. Okay, now we look at the assessment. So in my before the break, okay, when we look at the lesson planning, before we plan our contents, okay, before we plan our contents, we have to plan the achievement of the LOs. Okay, we plan our LOs first. Okay, what is the learning outcome the students should have? After that, before we plan the contents, we have to plan the assessment. Okay, how to measure the attainment of the LO. So the measurement is the assessment. Okay, so that's the things that we're going to look at in this second half. So for assessment, okay, to test whether or not the students have attained the LOs, okay, so we have formative and summative assessment. Okay, so in general, regardless whether it's formative or summative, there are tools to access, okay, the attainment of the LOs. So over here, we have to make sure we use the suitable methods, okay, to collect evidence. Okay. So let's look at individual. So we have formative and summative. So formative, as the name suggested, formative, formation. Okay. So it is something that we conduct during or end of a lesson. Okay. For example, the simplest formative assessment is by looking at the student's body language. For example, let's say you are teaching something, then you ask the students, do you understand? Okay, then all the students say yes, or they nod their head. So that is a form of formative assessment. Okay, you want to see the progress, development of the understanding. Okay, so that is the formative assessment. Okay, so you want to see whether or not they understand what you are teaching along the way. So it can be as simple as ask them questions like, do you understand? Okay, but of course, the do you understand is not very effective assessment. Okay, because there can be just nod their head for the sake of nodding their head. They might not know anything. Okay, so that can be just distraction, but eventually you still have to ask the actual questions. Like, no, you already pre-plan the questions for you to ask along the way. Okay, then you point, either it can be for individual or it can be for the whole class to answer. Okay, if you still remember the previous lesson, when we set the classroom climate, it can be competitive, it can be cooperative, or we can ask the question specifically for one individuals or for the whole group. Okay, but yeah, those questions that you ask along the way, basically they are considered as formative assessment. Okay, and this formative assessment basically is for us to know the level of understandings during the lesson. Okay, so we shouldn't punish the students, or no, there shouldn't be any marks given for this formative assessment. So what can be categorized as formative assessment? So homework, quizzes, which doesn't contribute to any marks. Okay, practicals, presentations, and online or group discussions. Okay, so these are some of the methods that can be formative assessment. Okay, so sometimes you might say, presentation, that one seems like summative. Okay, yes, correct. Okay, presentation can be formative, can be summative, depends on the instruction in the activity itself. Okay, for example, the presentation here is mainly like you ask the students to present what you just delivered earlier. That is formative. But if you give a task for the students to come up with a presentation, that and is related to your continuous assessment, then that is summative. Okay, they use whatever skills they have learned to do the presentation. That is summative. Okay, the presentation over here under formative is mainly they gather the informations that you just taught. They come up with mind map, they present it, or they do the discussion on the topics you just taught, and then they present it to the whole class for you to give feedback. Okay, so that is formative. Okay, yeah. So formative assessment. Okay, so it's not just for the sake of doing the activity. There's a purpose behind this formative assessment, why we want to do this. So first is basically a measurement of the effectiveness of your lesson delivery for that particular lesson. Okay, is it successful? Okay, how successful? Okay, and then next, how much students have learned. Okay, how much the students have learned, and your course of action after you give them the homework or you give them the quiz test, then how's the response? If 60%, 60% get 80s and above, then you know you have to reteach. Okay, if only 20% or 1-2 students, for example, 1-2 students score very low, then you know these two need extra help. Then you can approach them outside the class to see what's their issue. Okay, so you can see for this formative assessment, we can identify the so-called weak students or the students with difficulties much earlier, okay, before they fail the exam. Okay, so this is the so-called sort of a prevention. Okay, so we identify the problems earlier, then we try to solve before the final exam. Yeah, so this is just a general remarks. So formative assessment, they do not carry any marks. Okay, so it's used mainly to let us know how much the students have learned. Summative, okay, summative, as the name suggested, sum, okay, is total. So it's basically to assess the attainment of CLO, the course learning outcome, instead of the lesson learning. Okay, the earlier one, formative, that is specifically lesson learning outcome, LLO. Okay, but summative is for the bigger learning outcome, which is the CLO. So it can be continuous or final exam. Okay, and most of these are graded. Okay, and summative assessment It can be final exam, project paper, term or test, okay, midterm or test, case study, presentation, and practical. Okay, so as long as they give grades or marks, they contribute marks or grades to the final overall marks, then they are considered as summative because we want to test them how much they have learned for certain period of time. Okay, so these are summative. So summative, what kind of information they can give us. Okay, so like for the formative, we know exactly the problems on the spot. But for summative, for example, like final exam, it's too late already to correct, but we can learn from that. So first, okay, what information we can get from summative is the achievement of CLO, course learning outcome. What is the achievement? And then let's say a lot of students fail. Then this is where we have to reflect back, okay, what we have done along the way. And from there, we can do some adjustment to the teaching method or the teaching materials. Okay, and also it's time to revise back on the assessment methods, reflect back. Okay, are these questions related, or is there anything missing from the briefing or things like that? Okay, so these are some kind of some of the reflections we can do after the summative assessment. Okay, the achievement of LO, then the reflect back on our teaching methods and teaching materials. Okay, so for summative assessment, like the case study or presentations, normally we'll ask the students to, to put it, to have a proper cover page. I think you all have that practice, right? For the assignments that submit, that graded, they have the cover page. Yes? Yes, huh? Okay. So we jump straight. Okay, so final exam. Okay, so this, before that, just to ask you guys here, your course, do they have final exam?
Yes.
Yeah. How about Dr. Naim, yours? Do they have final grade? Jelani? Do the courses or course you teach has final exam? Testing, testing. Dr. Naim, can you hear me? Yeah, but I can't hear you. Or yeah. So your course, yeah, do they have final exam?
Oh yes, I do have a final exam for Introduction to Corporate Communication.
Yeah. So have final exams, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Because some courses they don't have, they just have coursework along the way. Okay. So yeah, so for final exam, yeah, that's good. Okay. So final exam, we plan ahead. Okay, so again, go back to the previous part. So when we prepare for the course, yeah, so that's the first thing that we have to think of. Okay, what kind of questions we want to ask the students pertaining to that course, okay, before we even build the contents. Okay, ideally, it should be that way. So when we plan out the questions, yeah, so these questions, it can go into this final exam. Okay, then from there, once we know what we want to test the students, then we build our content around the questions. So that will ensure effective teaching and learning. Okay, so that's why you can see for preparation of final exam, normally the due date is quite early, right? Because they expect you to start thinking about what questions to to create, okay, before the start of the course itself. Okay, when you are revising the course, you're preparing the course, you should have prepared the questions along the way. Okay, yeah, so that theoretically that is how it's supposed to work lah. All right, so now let's look at the questions. So type of questions, of course, we have multiple questions, we have a short structured question, okay, short answer or long answer or essay questions. Okay, so all these questions, they must have a proper design so that they are effective. Okay, so first is MCQ. So MCQ, basically they measure knowledge comprehension and application. So the advantage is the coverage is wide. They can cover a lot of topics and level. Basically are these three levels. Marking, okay, the advantage, the marking is easy. However, to create a proper MCQ questions is very time consuming because you have to make sure it is appropriate. Okay, and the poor design will give hints to students about the answer. Okay, so let's look at several examples of questions. Before that, the structure. Okay, so we have a question, they call it STEM, and then you have a correct answer, and then you have distractor. So basically, this is just a structure, okay, how MCQ question looks like, STEM, correct answer, and distractor. Okay. Looks easy, right? Just these three things. But let's look at these few examples here. Okay, poorly designed MCQ question. Okay, so you can type your answer in the chat box. Look at this question. The artist who drew famous kids on bicycle mural in Penang. Let's choose A, B, C, D. Okay, Dr. Naim says A. Yeah. Jailani and Sheila, just take a guess. Type in your answer. Okay, also A. All right. Yeah, that is correct. Okay. Yeah, he got sued. Not sure how much. Okay, so if you look at this question here, okay, if you are aware about entertainment or even general knowledge, okay, you should be able to answer these questions without knowing exactly the actual answer, okay, because you see, by elimination, you can tell already, John Cena, celebrity, Cristiano Ronaldo, soccer player, A. Samad Said, the poets, right? So the only available answer here is A. So this kind of situation is called non-relevant distractor. Okay, people can guess the answer easily because the distractors, they are not even close to the actual answer. Okay, so these kind of questions normally is, yeah, it failed to access the students' understanding. A second one. Okay, second question. Again, just take a guess. Okay, what vitamins is or are fat soluble? Just take a guess. Don't worry. Okay. A. Right. So we have yeah, Dr. Naim said A. Sheila. Then the vitamins here. Option A is A, vitamin B, vitamin C, all of the above. Okay, thank you. Okay, no problem. Okay. All right. We got C, then got D. Okay. So the answer is A. Okay, the answer is A. So the so-called the over here, just to show the use of the term all of the above or none of the above. So sometimes, if let's say in your options, normally we do like this, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and then the last one we don't know what alternative we want to give, so we just put all the above. That option, all of the above or none of the above, can be a distractor for a badly designed distractor for the students, because if they don't know, very high chance they will choose that as the answer. Okay, they don't know, they say, hey, there's this simple answer, all of the above, they will choose that. Okay, so normally if it is you want to do this kind of more than one answer, it should be several options, like you have different statements, like statement 1, statement 2, statement 3. And then in your answer options, you have A, 1 and 2, B, 2 and 3, C, 1 and 3, D, 1, 2, 3. You get what I mean? So normally those will be like you give them several statements and then you say, no, which are the correct statements or which are the wrong statements. Then only you give them the options, the pairing, whether it's 1, 2, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, so that will be more suitable. Like this kind of questions, if it is just your intention is for them to choose only one answer, but you put there all of the above or none of the above, then that statement itself is very distracting. And those students that maybe they don't know the answer, they surely will choose that. Okay, so it's considered as poorly designed question. Okay, next one. This one here looks very long. Never mind, give it a try. Okay, the concept of financial management. Okay, which one is the correct statement for the concept of financial management? Is it A, profit maximization, or B, very long there, C, organization of fund, or D, effective management of every company? Which one is the correct concept of financial management? Okay, thank you. B. And yes, the answer is B. Why? Because that is the most complete statement. Okay, that's the most complete statement which encompass of the A, C, and D. So yeah, sometimes this will be something that the students will look for. They look at, why now you have one of the answer which is the very different from others, very, very long. So they will straight away go for that. Okay, so yeah. And then there's an art of creating the answer also. So when, let's say your answer, you have 2, 3 words with different length. Normally we will put the shortest on top, longest at the bottom. Okay, so there's a there's a design there, it look artistic there. Okay, we don't simply put them around like what I show you here, some long, some shorts like this. Okay, normally when the good design questions, the options here will be shortest on top, the longest at the bottom. Okay, it goes that way. And then if you have like numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, you follow the sequence. Okay, A, B, C, D will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you cannot like jumble up. It looks very messy, and it might give hints to the students. Okay, last question, last MCQ question. Okay, so this is the very famous anime. Okay, if you haven't watched, you should be able to answer. Okay, even you haven't watched, you'll still be able to answer. Just take a guess what will be the answer for this question number 4. Okay, whether or not you follow the series, you should be able to answer because the hints is there. Okay, Sheila, don't think too much. Don't think too much. Just put your answer.
I already provide my answer.
Is it? Okay, sorry. Yeah, B. All right, thank you. Yes. So, yeah, I'm using something like this, but sometimes if you have MCQ questions, make sure you look back. Do you have the STEM clue in your question? Okay, like this one here, it says water. So definitely it's water. Okay, so yeah, these are example of STEM clue that sometimes we accidentally put it in our MCQ questions. Okay, so basically over here, these are the 4 so-called badly or poorly designed MCQ questions, which will mislead the students and also will make the assessment inaccurate, okay, to measure the students' understanding. Okay. Then sometimes we have questions like people ask like, it seems like you have provided all the answers in your MCQ. So how do we measure a higher thinking order? Okay, the one that cover like the analysis questions or application questions. Okay, can we have those kind of questions in MCQ? Okay, the answer is yes. Okay, so if your questions not directly like asking them what is the definition, what's the explanation, okay, the explanation that is very low level. Okay, but if you want to make sure the questions involve some higher thinking order, you can have questions that will require them to think then apply. So you can include like data for them to analyze before they answer the questions, a graph or diagram, or the question itself required them to use certain concepts, theories, or formula, okay, or a mix. For example, like this one here, don't worry, I won't ask you what is the correct answer. Okay, just to show examples. Okay, so like this one here is the chemistry questions. So if you look at the questions, the answer is like this only. But in order for the students to answer this, they need to understand several things. They need to know how to write the equation for the reaction between the methane and ethane with the oxygen. So they need to know about the equation. Then after that, they need to know what formula they should use to do the calculation. Okay, so from there only they can get the correct answer. So you can see like they need concepts and theories before they can answer the question. Okay, so this will be so-called the MCQ questions that require application. Okay, that require application. Okay, so that's for MCQ question. Now let's look at SAQ, okay, or structured questions, and essay question or long answer question. So let's start with the short first. So short normally require 1 to few sentences. So these kind of questions for SAQ, we can easily assess their ability according to the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so to see their attainment of the LOs. For example, like this one here, the question, identify 2 bodies that regulate solicitor. Okay, so there's a verb there, identify. So that don't need to explain the question. We just have to list out. Okay, so this one here, we test on their knowledge. And then question number 2, describe the role of 3 civil courts. Okay, so again, we have the question describe. So they need to describe briefly without explaining. So this one here, we test on their understanding. Okay, and the last example here, calculate the velocity of protons. So this one here is questions about application. Okay, so for SAQ, we can break down, okay, what we want to test, okay, at what level. Later on, remember, we have to fill in the blueprints. Okay, so this kind of questions is very easy for us to break down and fill in the blueprint. How many marks we want to test them on the knowledge, understanding, and application. Okay, now we look at the essay question or the long answer question. So this kind of questions will need few paragraphs to few pages to answer. So these questions normally test on the higher thinking order and also higher Bloom's level. Okay, for example, like this one here. Okay, with the help of a diagram, assess the effectiveness of government policies which might be used to reduce cost pushing inflation. Okay, so it's an evaluation question. Okay, or another one here, globalization will help to achieve economic growth in high income economies, and this will automatically improve living standards. Evaluate this statement. So it's the evaluation statement. So normally LAQ, we use these kind of questions to test on the higher levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. Evaluate, analysis kind of question. Okay, so yeah, those are few general types of questions we will prepare for the final exam, okay? Or even in the midterm as well. Okay, so now we just look at some steps for planning the questions. Okay, first step, decide on your goal or purpose for asking the questions. Okay, so the goal here will help you to determine the levels of questions you will ask. Okay, again, the purpose, all this actually relate back to the LO and the CLO. Okay. Then once you decided already the goal and purpose, then you choose materials which you consider important as the content for questioning. Okay, do not mislead them by emphasizing less important materials. For examples, like in your contents, you might have some non-important examples. So you don't create your questions based on those examples. Okay, make sure it tests them. Okay, apply the actual concepts. Okay, the actual things that they should achieve in their learning outcome. Then your questions, it shouldn't be as simple as answering yes or no, true or false. Okay, it should be follow up. If you have yes or no questions, you should have another follow-up questions to test on their understanding of why they give the answer yes or no. The fourth here, prepare, get ready, and refer. Okay, so basically this is more to you plan out your questions in advance. Okay, you plan out your questions in advance. In other words, it's like a question bank. If this is your first time teaching, then yes, you have limited questions. You have to start to develop, but after a while, you have a list of questions. Okay, so from there, you can tweak the questions to be a new questions for you to ask for next semester. Okay, so make sure you have a list of questions, and then they are in different difficulties. Okay, then when it's time for you to prepare questions, then you can plug the questions, the intentions, different levels, and create that as your question. Okay, and then when you ask the questions, make sure the instruction is clear. Okay, the instruction is clear so that there won't be any misinformation to the students. For example, here, okay, if you look at the example I give here, the first question is describe types of chemical bonding. Okay. Second question, describe three main types of chemical bondings. So if your question is like the first one, describe types of chemical bonding, the students, they can just put in one, they can put in two. Okay, you can't say like, oh, students, you have to look at the marks. If 1 mark means one answer, 2 marks mean two, you cannot generalize like that. Okay, so all these things must be clear in the question. You want them to give 3, you put in your questions, you want 3. So there's no way they can argue later. Hey, sir, madam, you never put in how many? I just simply answer lah. Okay, so make sure instruction is clear on what they need to provide to you. And then next, okay, your question should not contain the answer. Okay, sometimes when we want them to do some give opinion, okay, we want them to write the answer based on their own opinion, their own analysis. Okay, make sure we don't have hints, okay, in our questions that will lead them to certain direction. Okay, if you look at the example here, don't we all agree EV is the future? So that question itself is actually leading them to agreeing with the statement. Don't we all agree EV is the future? So the students, the so-called the weaker students, if they see these questions, they will go towards positive because you have the words agree there. So they will go that way. Against the second questions, what is your opinion on the future of EV? So that makes them think, is it good or bad? Okay, so this is the example of questions that might have some hints, okay, in it. And 7, okay, this part here is also another important thing. When planning the questions, try to anticipate possible students' responses. Okay, sometimes that for us, when we have been looking at the materials for too many times, we take things for granted. When we ask the questions, we say, oh, no, this is the answer. Okay? But the students might have different idea. Okay? So we have to look at, will there be any different answer based on the question? Okay? If, let's say, your intention is for the students to have several options, make sure you have these several options in your marking scheme as well. Okay, so the last part here, anticipate possible students' responses. First is to check whether that is what we want. Okay, do we want students to have only one answer or several answers? So if the questions will lead to several answers, maybe we want to rephrase. Okay? But if the intention is to have more than one answer, then we have to put the expected answer in the marking scheme. Okay, so that later on, when we are doing the second marking or what, our second markers, they will have those alternatives in the answer scheme. So when they do the second marking, at least there's less argument there. Yeah, so that's the 7th. Okay, so basically these are 7 steps we can follow when we are preparing the question paper. This is a reminder. This is our UOW's rules. Okay, so your coursework, if the weightage is 30 and above, make sure it is moderated. And then your final exam paper, that one has to be moderated as well. Okay, the next one here, this is our documents. We need this for the final exam. Okay, so the blueprints. So remember early on, we keep emphasizing on when you prepare the questions, okay, we have to use suitable verbs, okay, like identify, explain, list out. Okay, evaluate. So those basically is for us to put in this blueprint here. Okay, so that we can measure roughly how many percents of certain levels in the question paper. Okay, and if we have question paper A and B, we have to make sure these two are roughly the same difficulties. Okay, so that's the main use of blueprints. Okay, then blueprints here. Yeah, this one is guideline for examination blueprints. So this one give the general idea how many percents we should set for the low, medium, and high. For example, if you are teaching certificate students, okay, then you can set mostly on the low, okay, 60 to 80%, and then another 20% on the medium. You can have 0 to 5 high. But if you are teaching degree program, now you're teaching the year 3 and 4, then you should have around 15 to 30% of higher Bloom's level and 10 to 20 only for the low level. Okay, so this one here basically will give you the guides, okay, roughly, okay, the difficulties, okay, how much, what's the level of difficulties for the levels you are teaching. Okay, so up until here, any questions you'd like to ask? If no, let's continue. So done with the question. Okay, done with the question. Now we look at the marking scheme. So marking scheme and rubric. So basically both marking scheme and rubrics, they serve as a guide for examiners in grading, okay, and also give feedback to students on their performance. So marking scheme, grading scheme, marking rubrics. Okay, so basically they are serving the same purpose. It's just that the design will be different based on the nature of the questions. Okay, so if your assessment require straightforward answer, definite answers, then we use marking scheme. Okay, it's a simple one. But if you have to assess on different criteria, okay, with different complexity, then we use marking rubrics. Okay, marking scheme, straightforward. Okay, marking scheme, straightforward. Basically, you just need to have your answers and then which part will give the marks. Okay, if you have alternative, then you provide the alternatives in your marking scheme. Okay, like example like this. It's very straightforward if it is marking scheme. If let's say you are testing on certain range of skills like presentations, for example, or coursework, which will measure several criteria, then you need the marking rubric. Okay, so this is an example of marking rubric here. So you can see typical marking rubric. Okay, you have the criteria, then you have the standards, you have the criteria, what we want to measure. Okay, so example here, we have the executive summary. In total, how many marks? Business description, and also the market analysis. Okay, this is paperwork. Sorry, the project. Okay, project. Then after that, we have to set the standards, whether it's the 4 levels or the 5 levels. Okay, 4 levels: excellence, good, need improvement, or poor. Okay. And how many marks are there? And lastly, we have the descriptor. Okay, what define excellence? Okay, what differentiates between the good and the poor? Okay, so that is the descriptor. Okay, this part here basically just mentioned earlier. Okay, so the criteria is the characteristic we want to assess. Standard is the level. Okay, excellence, good, improvement, poor. Okay, and then descriptor. Okay, what we want to see. Okay, the qualities the students demonstrates. And if your project your assignment has rubric, we are encouraged to share the rubric to the students, okay? Because the rubrics, they are basically not answer, okay? Teaching the marking rubrics, they are not answer, they are just the criteria that we are measuring, okay? So it's good for you to share the rubric with the students so that then they know the expectation and they will try to achieve those expectations. Meanwhile, for marking scheme, we don't share that in advance or else the students will know the answer. Okay, so that's the difference there. Okay, so these are just the standard questions. So when you create the rubrics, okay, when you create the rubrics, let's say this is the first time you're creating from zero. So basically, these are some of the questions we ask ourselves. What knowledge and skills is the assignment designed for? Okay, so what is it about? So that will be from the learning objectives. Then what observable criteria represents those knowledge and skills? Okay, so this is identify criteria. For example, let's say you want the students to do presentation. Okay, then we want to see what we are measuring. Are we measuring their group work? We are measuring their the slides they prepare. Okay, so we plan out what criteria we want to assess. Then next, once we have the criteria, then how do we divide those criteria? Okay, is it 4 levels or 5 levels, and how many marks in each levels? Okay, and what are the criteria in every measurements there? Okay, what will be the description? Okay, what is the description for good? What is the description for excellent? And once we have the rubric created, then we test it. Okay, so as I said, let's say this is the first time you create the rubrics. Okay, you will think, this is the best rubric. It may be not, but we don't know. Okay, so once we run the assessment, then we use that rubric to mark. So that's where we start to see, to test out the rubric. Is it working? If it's good, then excellent. If not, then we might want to change either the criteria or the description in the descriptor to differentiate between the good and the poor. Okay, this is just an example. It's quite small in my view here, but I think yours you can see quite okay. So these are just examples of this is for persuasive speech rubric. So we are looking at the criteria there, research on the topics, delivery, organization, okay, logical and emotional appeal, and visual aids. Okay, then those are the criteria. Then we split into excellence, good, improvement, and poor. And you can see all the marks are given here. And then we have the descriptor inside here. So when we share this with students, then the students, they can read and know, oh, okay, so this is what I've been judged during the presentation. Okay, so when they, after they've done the presentations, then you give feedback on, oh, no, this is what you get. For example, the delivery parts, or is not clear, then that's why you get the need improvement here. Okay, or it's very excellent, very less distraction. Everything is very clear. That's why you get the excellence. Okay, so the rubric should help the students to achieve the LO. Okay, so that's the rubric. And yeah, nowadays, if you want idea on rubrics, you can basically ask ChatGPT. Okay, with a good probe questions, then they can come up with a rubric, which is not wrong. Okay, you can use that as a guide to see what kind of suitable distractor, the suitable description they use for the levels, then you can use that to improve on your rubric. Okay, because sometimes we know with the so-called the current rubrics we have, maybe it's not complete. That's why when we start to give marks, we have the doubts. Is this A or B? That kind of things. Okay, so yeah, ChatGPT is a very good tools there. Okay, to as a reference for us to see, okay, whether or not our current rubrics need improvement or not. Okay, or give us idea on what to test on the criteria side. Okay, so done with this part. Next, okay, let's say you have done you have done the questions, the students sit for the test, you get the results, everything, then we have to record the marks. So this will be a little bit about the processes, okay, nothing much, just a little bit. So in the course outlines, we have the assessment parts, okay, so make sure this one is communicated with students earlier on so that they're aware the weightage for the assessment, okay, how many assessments they have that will contribute to the total marks. Okay. And then this percentage, we have to put them or map them in the OBE forms. Okay, I believe you all have been briefed about the OBE form. Okay, so can start to put in the information. Okay, if you are not aware about the OBE form, you can start to ask your PL or ADH. Okay, so that you know, so that you can prepare it now, not until after the exam. Okay, so over here, you can see the transfer of the marks here. So in your course outline, you have the weightage. So in your OBE form over here, okay, you also have that percentage. So make sure they are tally. And then over here, okay, you have the total raw marks. Okay, so total raw marks for the assessment. And then after every assessment, you key in the marks in your OBE form. Okay, so when we key in here, we key in the raw marks. Okay, we key in as a raw marks. And then we have to key in those marks in the CAMU system as well. And for CAMU system, make sure the components are converted to 100% for each component. Then lastly, after the final exams, then we have to make sure the total here in the CAMU is tally with the total in the OBE form. Okay, so this part here, if you have tried to key in marks in your CAMU, okay, you notice over here they have this function. Okay, you click here, then you will see this part here. Okay. All right. So this is something new. The CAMU system here is something new to explore. So yeah, if any questions, feel free to get back to your PL or ADH. Okay, they should be able to assist. Okay, so done with the mark. Now we look at the last part, which is the academic misconduct. So this is the definition, refer to any actions that receive, try to accept, or help others in accepting or trying to receive unfair academic advantage. In other words, cheating. Okay, cheating in the assessment. So to be specific, over here we have plagiarism, collusion, contract cheating, fabrication, impersonating, and possession of unauthorized materials. So these are all the list. So for final exam, straightforward. Okay, if you happen to invigilate, you see any misconduct there, then you can take the prompt action, okay, to stop the misconduct. And I believe you all have been briefed by exam departments on what needs to be done, okay, if these kind of things happen. Okay. The challenge normally is for the continuous assessment, okay, especially if you ask them to write reports. So all these assessment will be exposed to plagiarism and also cheating, okay, so which are harder to detect. So plagiarism, this is the most common misconduct, okay, is referred to taking other people's work or idea and make it your own without citation. Okay. However, sometimes when we read through the work, we can tell whether that is original piece or it is basically plagiarized. Okay, few things here to look for. So basically, first for Malaysia, this is the first thing we look at. Okay, the standard of the English proficiency. Okay, in class when we communicate with the students, you can tell what is their language level, or when they submit their work, the on-the-spot work, we can tell how good are their grammars and things like that. And then suddenly when they submit the work, it's UK perfect UK English. Then you know something not right there. Okay. Then of course the formatting. Okay, formatting means this one will be copy and paste work. Okay, so inconsistent formatting, that is also a sign for us to take notes. And then lacking of citation, okay, or inconsistency in citation style. Okay, so that one also some sign there. Okay. Use of unusual or advanced vocabulary. I think this one is very common. Okay, they use the app to look for synonym, then they just copy and paste. Okay, and the sentence when you read, it sounds unusual. Yeah, so that is also a sign. Okay, and lastly, inconsistent writing style. Okay, so basically these are some of the signs that will prompt us that this work here might contain plagiarism or it's not original work. And of course, those assignments, normally we ask them to go through the to check for plagiarism. Okay, so turn it in, we ask them to run turn it in. The typical benchmark is lesser than 20%, okay, 20 or lesser. So anything more than 20%, then yeah, there's a red flag already. Okay, of course, the percentage here depends on your schools also. So your schools might have your own benchmark, so you follow that. But this 20% is the common practice. So we have Turnitin checker. If you, and then for exam, okay, for exam, I believe we all do face-to-face exam now. Okay? In case if you are doing some online tests or online midterm, then you are recommended to use exam.net, which we have the subscription. So for this, Turnitin or exam.net, okay, you can always ask Mr. Hazim from TLC, okay, for more information or access or things like that. Okay, so yeah, that is his email address. Okay, or under your email, you just type Hazim, then you should be able to see. Okay. Exam.net, have anyone used exam.net before? MCO times. Okay, and during MCO time, yeah, we all explore that, but now, yeah, now hardly used already. Okay, but I think Turnitin, that one is quite common. Okay, Turnitin, if your course requires reports writing, then yes, okay, Turnitin is very important to use. Okay, so this part here, basically, this is written in a handbook. Some of the actions on plagiarism, depending on the severity, but these are some of the actions, some of the action we can take to the students. So it's always good if we can relay this information to students, okay, just to threaten them so that they won't do this kind of misconduct. Okay, we can tell them if they are caught with plagiarisms, then these are some of the consequences they might face. The lightest one, of course, a warning letter. Okay, the schools have the right to issue warning letter to them, or they have to resubmit their work with at certain duration, and the schools have the right to cap the marks of their resubmission, the resubmitted work, or they can easily just get the fail, no resubmission. Okay, so the schools have the rights to do this. Okay, they get the fail grade for that particular work, or they get the fail grade for the entire course. Depends on the nature. Okay, or worst case scenario, okay, they can get exclusion from the college or UC. Okay, so in other words, they got kicked out, okay, from the course. Okay, so these are some of the actions the schools can take. So it's good, again, okay, it's good if we can make the students aware about these consequences if they are caught with plagiarism. Okay, so basically that is the end of today's session. So we have covered the lesson planning, and then we look at the assessment part, okay, the question paper, the answer, okay, and a little bit about how to key in the marks, okay, and also lastly about the academic misconduct. Okay, recap here. Okay, so always refer to learning outcomes when planning the lesson. And when we deliver the lesson in the class, make sure you focus on the must know. Okay, must know. And use the GETNI 7 event instructions to plan lesson flow. As I mentioned earlier, this GETNI, the original, we have 9 steps. Okay, you can check out this. If you just type in GETNI, then you should be able to Google this. Okay. And then for the assessment, make sure you plan assessment in advance before the start of semester. Ideally, this is the thing. Okay. And then make sure you remember if your assessment is 30% or above, make sure you get it moderated. Okay, and again, always remind the students about academic misconduct and consequences. Okay, so basically that's the recap for today's sharing session. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, or any things you want to share. So far, have you experienced any plagiarism in your years of teaching? Start with Dr. Naim first. Maybe you want to share the kind of academic misconduct. It can be final exam cheating in the exam hall, or it can be plagiarism. Can you share a bit?
Oh yeah, I handled a case of a student attempting to cheat in the exam hall.
So what happened? What pattern the students use?
It was in my previous university, so the student was under scholarship, so we revoked the scholarship. Yeah,
So the students brought in
yeah,
answer
so
or wrote the
brought in
answers on.
notes.
I see, I see. How about plagiarism cases in the assignments, everything? So far, have you experienced? No, yeah, okay. Thank you. Sheila, how about you?
In terms of plagiarism, no, I don't have any experience. But in terms of students trying to cheat, for me also in my previous college, the same thing. The students brought in the answer, okay. But funny things about it, the students put the answer inside the shoes. So maybe
Okay, that's very
empathy for
creative.
that student. Suddenly, like when the students want to move from her seat, what happened? The maybe I don't know, the we can see the paper, the piece of paper.
Ah,
That's what happened lah. So that's one case that I
I
saw
see.
previously.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I think exam department also mentioned now they can't wear the smartwatch, right?
Mm.
Yeah, the smartwatch. Yeah, that's the so-called new things lah they might try. Okay, so make sure when you are invigilating, even in our classroom itself, when we give our test, our midterm, make sure we enforcing all these rules as well. Okay, so that when they go to the final exam, they don't get the shock. For example, like no, we know they cannot wear smartwatch, no, the cannot bring in pencil box on the table. All these things, when we are doing tests, we are doing midterm in our classroom, make sure we keep emphasizing on this. Okay, no watch, no pencil box. Okay, make sure we let them know so that they won't get a shock when they go to final exam. Okay, so yeah, thank you for the sharing. I guess that's all for today. Let's try Jailani. Do you have any experience to share? Calling for Jailani. Never mind, no response. Okay. I guess that's all for today from me. Later you have another session, right, with Dr. Alicia. So yeah, so that will be about the use of blended learning, I think. Okay, so anything, feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions. Okay, I will try my best to help. Okay, so that's all. See you around. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tang. Have a nice
Welcome.
day.